Welcome to the very first episode of Against the Grain podcast. I'm your host, Katie Goodwin. I'm so excited to finally get this podcast started. It's something I've wanted to do for such a long time now, and just to share my own experiences being a woman in golf and really just being honest about what happens. So today in this very first episode, we are talking about my personal experiences in golf, not only playing the sport, but also working in the industry as well. I've been an intern in the Junior Golf Association of Arizona. I've volunteered in it. I've volunteered in Oregon Junior Golf, all over really. And I'm just going to share a little bit more about me, who I am, where I'm from, and why I've always wanted to make this podcast. So really who I am, I'm a Pacific Northwest kid at heart. I'm from Oregon. I grew up there for 18 years. And then I moved down to Arizona when I started college. I played golf at Arizona Christian University, played there for a couple years. Before that, I started playing golf when I was 4 years old. My cousins got me into it. I started playing in tournaments when I was 10 and just went from there. I loved the game, loved everything it brought me. I met so many different people through it, got to travel to so many different places like Pinehurst and Arizona play some of their top courses, and Washington play championship courses that only the PGA gets to play. And I always thought that was really cool. So I love meeting new people. I love traveling, and getting to combine that with a love of sport was always just something that I loved, and hence why I want to talk about it more and really just get to see the women in it. And it's hard when there's not a lot of women in there. You feel like an outcast, you feel isolated, and I want to make this to help spread that women are accepted in this sport, that women can do it just as well as the men. And so as I mentioned earlier, I played golf in college for a couple years at Arizona Christian, but then I ended up transferring to Arizona State and stopping my competitive golf career, but still playing every now and then when I can, just really trying to keep my skills up as well as I can. It is hard though sometimes. And I also, like I said, interned for the Junior Golf Association, also known as JGAA, and I was their communications intern. I took all their photos, ran their social media, and that also kind of started this love of wanting to share voices that aren't always heard in the golf community. And I hope that with this podcast, I can help share those voices and really help women just create their voice in the golf industry in a place that has always been male dominated, and, maybe start to change that norm. So in college golf, I experienced so much gender difference, and there was such a big gap. The men would constantly get more clothes, they would get more money for tournaments, they would get more scholarships. They had a team of 15 compared to us girls who had a team of 3, sometimes 5. There were times where we didn't even have a full team because we didn't have the money for that, and we didn't even have the money sometimes to get a full rental car. We were in a van that my coach had to drive, when the guys were getting multiple cars and drivers, and they were staying in Airbnbs, and we were staying at the worst hotel in the city. And just when you look at that and you see it, it makes you wonder and question, what am I doing wrong? Is it something I did? Is it something I said? But really, your reality is it's just how you were born, and there's nothing you can do to change that, and yet people think it's something you can change. Okay, well, I can't change the fact that I'm a woman and I chose golf, and that's just, they made you feel like you weren't worthy. And I wasn't even at the biggest school. I was at a small NAIA college. I was at a school with 900 people, and yet they made me feel like I wasn't enough, I wasn't seen, and yet these guys were getting everything. They were acting like they were in Division I program, and we felt like we weren't. And we just got treated so poorly. And the guys also had better practice facilities. They would get to practice more days a week at the nicer courses. They would just, they were starting to create a golf practice facility at the school, and only the guys got to use it. The girls never got to use it. We didn't even know about it until it was established, and we weren't even there to help set it up. If somebody would have asked me to help set this up, I more than happily would have been there, laying down the turf, putting up the nets. But no one asked me, no one asked us. And that's just how overlooked we were. And of course, this was just my personal experience at the school. I don't know what everyone else's experience has been on a women's golf team at any other college, but I have talked to my other friends who have been at schools in Texas and in California and also other schools in Arizona, and they've all experienced the same thing. They've all expressed similar concerns about how the men on their same team are getting so much more than them, and that it's eating away at their mental health, which will actually be a discussion for next week, a little sneak peek about what is to come, but just how it really does affect your mental health in college. And you're already going through so much in college, just to have another thing, it's so much more than an 18 or a 23-year-old can take. Just to have these social pressures on you over and over and over, and they're just always there. You can't do anything. And it sucks. To be quite honest, it does. And that was honestly part of the reason why I left the school, why I stopped golf entirely, was because of that gender difference in college that I experienced. There were other things, but it really, I hated seeing that inequality there. I can't English sometimes, so, but yeah, that inequality was just so bad, and, it's like, okay, so the guys already have the scholarships, they have the clothes, they have the better tournaments, they have the practice facilities. Can they have anything else? Well, sure, give them more coaches as well. There were times when us girls only had one coach, and that coach wouldn't even show up at practice. And the guys constantly had at least an assistant coach with them more than half of the time. And while he was willing to help us, even at tournaments when he was willing to help us because our coach was nowhere to be seen, he was still with the boys. That was his main focus. And while these boys are still there, they're sometimes cheering you on. You just feel so lonely when you're out on the golf course, when you're in these big moments and you have no one, because not only are you overlooked by the men's golf team and their coaches, but you're overlooked by the school because they don't think that girls golf is something worthy. It's something that can be valuable to people. And I know even too, like there were times in school assemblies when they'd be going over spring sports. Every sport was mentioned. Every single sport. And this was coming from an NAIA school that 85% of the students were student athletes. So many people played a sport. And they would announce the sports, but not girls golf. I would walk up to people in a classroom to meet them, and one of the first questions I was always asked at this school was, what sport do you play? Because 85% of the kids were student athletes. And I'd say, oh, I play on the golf team here. We have a golf team? That is the question that came out of their mouths more times than not. The surprise that was on their face that there was even a golf team for women at this school. And it still blows my mind. I'm 2 years removed from this school, and I just think back to it and how really unfairly we were treated. And I just think that I just don't know if it will get better. I really don't. And it's sad to see, because not only is this was this in my previous college, but it's in so many colleges, and it's all around the country, it's all around the world that this is happening in women's college golf. You can even look at Division I women's golf. They just started to get their tournaments covered on TV in the past 2 years. One of the top amateur women's events in the world just started playing at Augusta National, which is the course used for the Masters tournament that a lot of people know and was heavily men's only. And they just started allowing women to play there, and these college golfers just finally get the opportunity, and they don't even get to play on the championship course every single day. They only get to play it one day. And, I just look at what happens to these college women that play golf, and you just continually beat them down so much, and something has to change. I don't know what. And the fact that, too, it's not just in college, but it spreads younger. It goes to junior golf. It starts when these kids are 8. As I mentioned, I was an intern for the Junior Golf Association for 2 years. I volunteered for them a year before I even started interning. I saw so many things in the gender gaps. And it's even in a place where golf is common in Arizona. You turn a corner and there's a golf course. And while I was working, there were times when we had our 10 and under divisions, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. That's how we structured our association for these tournaments. And there were times where the 10 and under or 11, 12 girls division wouldn't have any participants, but yet the boys would. And it's just crazy. You even look at that and you see it starts so young. And even in my work, the men would always think that they have to carry the heavy items. They would have to set up the big things like the tents and the tables, and always offer to carry the heavy things. And me being me, I like to think I'm a strong, independent woman, and I don't need a guy to carry these tents or these tables that they honestly don't weigh very much. And it's just, I don't get why they have to think that they need to carry this because the women can't. And that goes for any industry, not just the golf industry or sports industry, but even in business or things like that, where you do have heavy loads to carry. There's also men at these country clubs that we go to who think I'm there to serve them. They don't even recognize the logo that was on my shirt that said I worked for the company. I didn't have a shirt that anyone else had, and I had a name tag on. Okay, well, why would I be wearing a JGAA shirt if I'm working at the club to serve you? And oftentimes I'd get asked, can you run this tournament? Are you sure about it? And I've had coworkers kind of just poke fun at me being a woman in this and just say, okay, well, you're a woman, maybe I should take the lead on something, or kind of jokingly call me a boss when I know you're just saying that because you want to run the whole thing. And I might go along with it for a little while, but it's not gonna last. I mean, how long do you really think I'm gonna keep putting up with people saying that I can't run a tournament, or people saying that I'm only there to serve you when I'm trying to run a tournament for one of the biggest organizations in Arizona and really one of the biggest junior golf associations in the country. People come from all over to play in our tournaments, and I was responsible, and the fact that people didn't think I was responsible for it because of my gender is crazy. I mean, just because I'm a 21-year-old woman in golf, I have experience, and yet here they were doubting me, and there I was, though, at the end of those 2 days having to prove them wrong. A tournament can go smoothly with a woman running it, that conflicts can be resolved quickly with a woman running it. And not only does this happen in golf, obviously my main focus is to talk about women in golf, to promote women in golf, and really just show that, as I mentioned, we can do it as well. But it's in all other sports. You look at football, you look at baseball, you look at basketball, even sports like soccer and tennis, where there's unequal pay, where people in the industry, it's a heavily male-dominated culture, and there's just not a lot of women. And also, when women have to be specially celebrated, you could say, when a woman does get up and above into the higher ups, you could say, and they get into a bigger position, it's has to be celebrated. And because it's not normal, it's uncommon, and that shouldn't be how it has to work. When a guy goes into a new position, it's just, okay, here's a guy, he got a higher position in this company in sports, here he goes. But when a woman does it, you see a team post about, okay, we hired this woman and she's going to go do great things. Okay, well, we know she's going to do great things, but why does it have to be talked about like it's something that doesn't happen? And that's the thing, it doesn't happen. And because you're singling this out, I mean, it just makes it feel so uncommon, like it's a foreign concept, and I just hate that. And it shouldn't have to be like that. And I know, like, even in my own experiences when I watch golf, there's not a lot of women on there. I was even watching golf yesterday for the PGA Championship, and I looked at the commentators because I know that's a spot where I maybe want to be one day, and all of these people were men. There was not one woman. Yes, it was a men's tournament, but if there's men for a women's tournament, why can't there be women for a men's tournament? And it just doesn't balance out, and you just see it so much. And while they're trying to say, oh, things are changing, we're really getting more women, we're trying to promote diversity, things aren't changing. And so that leads me to the question of, what would I change? What would Katie do? Honestly, I'd do a lot, because there's a lot that needs to be done. And I would start with just starting people young. People don't learn about these issues until they're 15, 16. I honestly didn't become fully aware of the spectrum until I got to college. So until I was 18, 19, when I really started to want to speak out about these issues that I've faced, people that I know have faced, and it just, when people do become aware of things at a younger age, whether it is a man or a woman or a young female golfer, a young male golfer, they're understanding this gap that we have and how much it affects people. I just think that that's what people are glancing over so much. I know that for me, it has affected me. As I've said, it made me feel isolated. It made me feel unworthy. Yes, I can bond with my teammates about how we're not getting anything, but at the end of the day, we wanted stuff for ourselves to get better in golf, because when we didn't have these resources, there was no way to get better. And yes, we can sit there on the putting green and grind away, but when we don't have a coach there to even support us, how can we feel mentally stimulated to want to keep going when we're overlooked, we're overseen, when we know that the men were getting their coach and they were there? And so I also just think that there needs to be people for these people. Just having older women, not even older, but people my age, people that are 20 to 25, just coming alongside these young women who are coming up the ranks of junior golf and just walking beside them because they know that they won't be alone. And I know for me that if someone came and asked me, hey, can you help me? I'm not gonna abandon them. I'm gonna stay with them through this entire time. I'm gonna probably bug them to see how they're doing in college even. I know that some of the junior golfers that I've talked to, they've really wanted me to step alongside them and be there for them. And I'm more than happy to do it because there were times where I didn't have that. And I don't want them to have these same experiences that I had. I want them to know that I see them, to know that they don't have to feel alone in what they're going through. And really just the fact that even if there are times when they feel alone, or times where they feel isolated, or times when maybe the guys on their future college team are getting more than them, that they can come to me and I can talk to them about my own experiences. And while I wish I didn't have these experiences, I know that it has really shaped me into the person I am today. It has made me want to speak out about this, made me just want to be an advocate, for women in golf and beyond that, women in sports, because it needs to not be such a foreign concept. It needs to be common. It needs to be equal, maybe 50-50 one day. And granted, I don't know if that's going to happen. I sure hope it does. I hope that change comes, and I hope I can be a reason why part of that change comes. And just another thing I would look at is how much value women's golf adds to the community. And when people see women golfing, it's inspiring. So the last thing that I would change about it is just really having women come alongside women to grow these communities, not just in places that are common for golf like Arizona, Texas, Florida. Look at these states that have golf all year round, but even places like Oregon or Washington, where I came from in the Pacific Northwest, where golf wasn't the most common thing because of the weather. And I rarely saw women's golf communities for younger girls that golf, and just being able to create these communities of women, maybe they're 80 years old and they've been playing golf for only 20 years after they retired, or a 5-year-old playing around with plastic clubs who's wanting to be the next Nelly Korda or Lydia Ko. Just people that can come alongside and help grow this group of women that want to golf and want to make a name for themselves, not even necessarily in the world or the country, but in at their own golf course, for what they're doing for these people that just really want to play golf. And I love this sport. I've always wanted to be in it, and just because I'm not playing anymore doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop being in it. And I really want to push for women to have a place for themselves in this sport. You look at it and you look at all levels, whether it is junior golf, whether it is college golf, amateur golf, even professional golf, and it is heavily male dominated. You ask people what they think of when they hear the sport golf, and they think older male, and they don't necessarily think young woman. And we really have to get this group together to help change it. And while it might never go to what do you think of golf or what do you think of when you hear the word golf, it might never get to be it's a women's sport, because it always has been a men's sport. But just maybe we can get it just a little bit closer with every day, and just day by day work on getting that gap to close. And that's why I'm here trying to do what I love to do, and combining that love and passion for golf with the passion that I have for helping women get their voices heard and just being an advocate for people who don't always have the voice. And so with that, we go into a sneak peek of next week's episode where I will be talking about the problem of this gender gap in golf, in the golf industry, and how it affects mental health, because it can have a huge effect, a lot bigger than what people think. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to the very first episode of Against the Grain. I'm so excited for what we have in store for this podcast and for everyone to listen in on what we have planned. So I'm your host, Katie Goodwin, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye!